Okay, so good morning, everyone. This is Susie Chiquino. I'm taking over for Stephen Lavoti today on his leadership call. He asked me to do this call today because he's in Canada. And so I just thought of like last night, what should we talk about today? And you know what? The easiest thing for me is to be my own storyteller, right? So I'll just go with like what's going on in my life and then take it from there. So I'm going to keep it to his format where he shares a video that's kind of relatable to what we're doing. But for those of you who don't know me, I've been in Isagenix for about 6 years. When I started Isagenix, I was probably at the worst financial point in my life. I was already in over $100,000 in credit card debt, and we were financially struggling. We didn't really know how to make ends meet. There was no money, but I owned my own business. I had a restaurant business for 18 years. And I was already in another network marketing company, and then I moved over to Isagenix, and I didn't even have the money to buy the products, but I knew based on what Lisa's vision was that this is where I should be. And I made the decision. I borrowed the $600. I bought a President's Pack, and the rest is history, right? Multiple six figures later, it's been life-changing for me and my family. But what I wanted to talk about today, and something that's been kind of on my heart myself, is, I just went to David Wood University in Action. And if any of you have never been to a University in Action, I really, truly believe that's probably one of the best events Isagenix hosts, because it gets down to the nitty gritty and how to talk to people and sharing your story and also uncovering things that are very uncomfortable for you. And I realized for myself, when I become the most uncomfortable is when my back's against the wall and there's no other choice. And, the raw and real conversation is, when I didn't have enough money to survive, I figured it out how to get to the next step. But when I'm comfortable and I have the money coming in, I'm not really worrying about, what I should do next. It's when I'm uncomfortable and when my back is against the wall, that's when I decide that I need to shift and change. And I feel like right now that's happening with my health conversation for myself, because I haven't been so uncomfortable where I hate it so much that I need to make that shift or that change. Can anybody kind of relate with that? Yeah. Okay. So I found this video, and I'm going to do Steven style, sharing my screen, which I'm not. Okay. Here we go. Silva, can you give me a thumbs up if you could see my screen? Okay, good. And I know I can't put it in full mode, so.
So I was on a roll. I was an executive with a nice salary, annual bonuses and stock options, all the perks. Everything was on track. And on Monday, January 7th, 2008, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in a small conference room on the top floor of our building, the president of the company wanted to have a quick meeting with me, which wasn't unusual since he was my boss. But the meeting turned out to be even more brief than expected. He fired me. And I'll never forget how his words just sucked the breath right out of me. And I left the conference room in a dazed state, and I went home and curled up in my bed in the fetal position for 3 hours. And while I could go on in vivid detail about how I felt, what I did to my self-esteem, my finances, and so on, what I now realize is while that event created the greatest amount of discomfort I had ever felt, it was that discomfort, the departure from my ordered life, that forever changed it for the better. You see, friends, what makes you comfortable can ruin you. And what makes you uncomfortable is the only way to grow. Let me say that again. What makes you comfortable can ruin you, and only in a state of discomfort can you continually grow. Now, I suppose if on January 8th, somebody come up and said, "Gee, buddy, getting fired's a good thing because now you're really going to grow," I probably would have smacked them. But pretty quickly, I became motivated to start a new journey. And after a couple of years of work with my new team and a PhD friend at the University of Nebraska, we had this epiphany on how to illustrate and apply the science of discomfort and growth. We called the concept the growth rings. The growth rings represent living environments that promote or hinder growth. And that includes everything from your place of work to even a fishbowl. You see, what dictates the size of a goldfish is its environment. Mm-hmm. And while this goldfish lives in a very safe environment, it's also very limiting in most every way. And when placed in a more robust environment, like say a small pond, this can be the result. Now it also means he could be eaten. But friends, this is you. The environments in which you work, live, and play, they're all a proverbial fishbowl that dictates your growth. So the first growth ring represents a low-performing, low-growth environment called stagnation. Stagnation is understood by having to follow too many steps and permissions of minutia, thus stifles creativity, independent thought, and action. To imagine an environment such as this, think no further than our state and federal governments. Now, the antithesis of stagnation is chaos, also low growth and low performing. Chaos can be caused by internal or external events or conditions. We see chaos occur at times in business mergers, natural disasters, and horrific events like 9/11. Chaos is having zero predictability or control over inputs and outcomes. Coming back down the growth rings, next to stagnation is the most desirable environment, order. Order is knowing that what you do or what is happening in your environment leads to a predictable outcome. And in predictability, comfort is found. But comfort is also what makes order so dangerous, because science shows that anytime you continually do something or even think about something the same way, you'll eventually stop growing. And this applies to every living thing, even our dog. You see, if Aspen had a chance, she'd choose comfort 6 days a week and twice on Sundays. But too much growth-limiting order would have prevented her from becoming a therapy dog. And had this been allowed, think of the lives this gentle soul would not be touching today. So before your order continues to limit the way you think and act, remember what I said earlier. Growth only occurs in a state of discomfort. Now think about the power of that phrase. Growth only occurs in a state of discomfort. I can unequivocally state I wouldn't be standing on this stage today without my uncomfortable, order-disrupting day 9 years ago. By the way, I'm not recommending you go get fired to see if it leads to a TED Talk, but when you feel discomfort hit, that means you've entered the complexity ring. Complexity is nothing more than changed order. But when your order is changed, outcomes are no longer predictable. And it's unpredictability that makes you uncomfortable. And well, most times, your visceral response to discomfort is not just no, but hell no. You can actually learn how empowering it is to consciously acknowledge discomfort. And then when appropriate, choose complexity over order. And I know seeking discomfort sounds odd, and not many people do it, but you have to learn to embrace it because it's the only environment where sustained or exponential growth can occur. Okay, to weave high growth complexity into the fabric of your lives, there are three primary ways it can be triggered. Complexity trigger number one is it can be forced upon you. When I got fired, I didn't have a chance to stay in order. Complexity was selected for me. And when this happens, how much you grow depends on how you respond to it. Now, I could have remained angry. I could have used it as an excuse. But what I actually learned is that I suck as an employee. And I'm much better off accepting the risks of running my own company. Complexity trigger number two. Someone can help you get there. This is the role of parents, teachers, coaches, and bosses, because left on their own, people will consciously or subconsciously select the comfort of order. And they then need to be pushed into complexity in order to continue growing. My youngest daughter spent most of her high school life training to play tennis. And her coach was pretty familiar with our work on complexity and the growth rings. So I called him up one day to check on Maddie's progress, and I was able to phrase my question like this. I said, hey, Lee, how long has it been since Maddie's been pushed deep into complexity? And his response, funny you'd ask, Bill. We got there yesterday. She broke down into tears on the tennis court. Well, knowing how tough my daughter is, and the fact that she never cries, told me she was deep into complexity. But friends, this is where critical developmental decisions are made, because the old Bill, the pre-growth ring Bill, would have intervened and wanted to know what was making her so uncomfortable. Then I would have done everything I could to try and get her happy again. What I really would have been doing is removing the complexity and putting her in order. I actually would have been stifling her development. But the new post-growth ring Bill relished in his daughter's discomfort. And it was the coach's next words that told me everything I needed to hear. He said, but Billy, got to tell you, it took a heck of a lot more to get her to the limits of complexity this month than it did last month. Discomfort was causing her growth. Okay, but what if you're not lucky enough to live or work in a robust, high-growth environment? What if you're stuck in order, even worse, stagnation? Well, the great news is everyone can trigger complexity at any time. So complexity trigger number 3, trigger it yourself. Take a journey with me back to Montgomery, Alabama in the 1950s. Imagine, if you will, a young girl who's black. She attends an all-black high school. And she takes a city bus to get there and home, which wasn't unusual in that era. And on March 2nd, 1955, she boards the bus to come home from school, and she sits near the back, the first row of seats where blacks were allowed to sit. And as the bus continues to fill with white people, there's eventually no more room in the front of the bus. And according to local law, she needed to move further back to create room for white people to sit. You see, Montgomery had an order in place that, when followed, led to a very predictable outcome: repression of people with little conflict. The 15-year-old Claudette Colvin had just spent the last month in high school studying Black history, and she was understandably fed up with the historic and existing atrocities. And so on this day, she decided she didn't like Montgomery's order. And by refusing to give up her seat, she sent the community, our laws, and our entire country into complexity. Yes, 9 months before Rosa Parks made her famous decision to stay put, this was a 15-year-old girl that was handcuffed, dragged from the bus, and taken to prison. It was Miss Colvin, not Rosa Parks, who first fought the law, and by the way, was also the star plaintiff to testify in the famous lawsuit that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. So I use Claudette's actions not to heighten awareness of race issues, although that's not necessarily bad, but I use it as an example of every issue, of every situation in an ordered environment. It's a real and perfect example of complexity forcing people, our communities, and our courts into discomfort, and the downstream impact that can occur anytime someone elects to move from order. Dr. Serene Jones, in a recent book, summarizes this concept very eloquently. She said, "The constant facade of order hides the wilderness that is craving to seep out and teach us that life wasn't created to be what we think it is. Beyond words, we must experience the wilderness to be taught what cannot be otherwise known." So friends, it's not the discomfort of losing a job, it's not having a child break down on the tennis courts, but it's order you should fear the most, because it is a threat. And order disrupting people like Jesus, Galileo, Claudette Colvin, Aspen's trainer, and maybe even a few of you have already proven, now think about this, It's not the complexity triggering individuals or events you should fear the most, but it's your own willingness to accept or seek discomfort that will dictate the growth of not just you, but our entire world. Thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this.
Wow. So that video for me was very powerful because it's something that spoke to me. And I'm going to open it up now for anybody who wants to share something that they felt.
Good morning, it's Judy.
Hey, Judy.
Hi, Susie. This is such a familiar theme for me in my life. In all that I've done, I know that I've grown when I've stepped out of my comfort zone, and I am comfortable right now. And I'm sort of, if you think about the concept of eking a little bit of discomfort, I'm doing that. I'm growing a little bit every day, but I recognize how comfort seeps in and is stopping me from really bigger growth when I think about my bigger passion, right? Wanting to really, really reach out to a lot of people. That it takes there's a lot of fear out there for me of really reaching out, because that's going to be full of more rejection. And I've had lots, and I'm okay with it so far, but I know that I'm pushing.
Thanks so much.
Right? I'm pushing myself away from that into comfort. So it really speaks to me, and have to really meditate on that this morning.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that, Judy.
Yeah.
I'm speaking. Hi, Susie, and thanks for hosting today. Hearing you as well, Judy, and it was a reminder when he was speaking about complexity, and just, I guess, the takeaway, like sometimes I guess I think of the roller coaster where I'm good in that complexity, and then it's tiring, right? And I want to get into the comfort zone. And I guess the goal is to narrow the gap where there's always a level of complexity that's manageable as a lifestyle, so that there's always growth and change, but that there's is for reflection. And for me, anchoring in meditation and giving 24 hours to breathe has become sort of the way that I'm narrowing the gap. But just the way he explained, like his daughter with tennis, like, you know, getting her to that massive complexity as someone who leads a big team. I don't think I push those who have given me permission to do so into the level of complexity I know they're capable of. And I know I like my coaches pushing me into that level of complexity and uncertainty to grow. And I thought, am I doing them a disservice? And I think a conversation to reaffirm permission from them that they want to go there with 2 months left in the year, and then taking them there. And just trusting that everyone's far more capable of what they know they're capable of, and that my job is to take them to the place where they maybe don't like me very much because I'm the one that's going to push them there with permission, but that in the end, I'm always so grateful for my coaches for doing that. And that's a takeaway for me, to just step up as a leader and just reaffirm those conversations, you know, as we head into the end of the month. So thank you so much for putting that up there. It was powerful on so many levels.
Awesome, Cheryl. Thank you, Lori. And you know what I tend to realize in my own life is that when the pain is great enough, change will happen. And sometimes we haven't had that extreme pain, so we tend to go easier into comfort than into something that's uncomfortable or unknown. So if we push ourselves a little bit more into the unknown and the uncomfortable zone, could you imagine what we could create? Because what we've created already is amazing, right?
I think that's such an incredible point around the difference that Lori was saying around pushing ourselves versus pushing others, because, you know, I do get how to push myself. But the idea of pushing somebody else when they push back and say, no, I'm too busy right now, I got too much, I'm a therapist, I'm a psychotherapist, so I have to, part of me just has to honor that. It hasn't been the greatest cap to put on for my ISABIZ though. So yeah, that is precious, Lori, thanks. I'd love anyone else to speak to that too, in terms of, Susie, how did you get to where you are, multiple six figures in Isagenix? Did you make other people uncomfortable in a loving way?
Yeah, it's sometimes that's so great that you asked that, Judy. And, I have a couple of people that are here that are on my personal team, and Debbie is one of my adopted people, but I do have those raw and real conversations with people, and sometimes they're not pretty, but you know what's needed, because if you're a real friend, that's what you talk about. You don't try to say, yes, it's okay, don't worry about it, you'll do better. No, this is what you need to do, and this is what, if you're open to hearing the constructive criticism, I'm willing to give it. But some people are not willing for that. So you have to do it where people want it. And how bad do you want it? So if you tell me you want this really bad, then I'm going to be there to help push you, because that's what we are. We're coaching them. Anyone else had something open up for them or want to share?
I'm going to just jump right on top of Judy's and ask you, Susie, because I've got a dozen conversations in my head that I want to do in the next day or two. If I'm working with you and I've said, yes, I want that 6-figure income, I want to hit 3-star, and I've, started after celebration saying, this is what I'm going to do. We do our weekly calls, and I'm not doing I committed to double PIBs every week, for example, because I want to get to executive, and, we know that that's the basic bare minimum, that you got to do that every week, and it's never showing up, and there's always excuses and distractions. How would you open, other than re-asking permission, like, hey, can we have a conversation? How would you open the conversation? Because I'm a recovering people pleaser, so that's probably the most challenging piece, is the first few sentences to get into it. Do you mind just role playing for a second?
Sure, no problem. Like when I first start someone, I ask a lot of questions, and we go through that new associate checklist and questionnaire, which is really important. But I also dive into asking a lot of questions of what they want out of this. And I say to them, is it okay with you if I remind you of this when you forget that this is what you're looking to achieve? And those are the conversations that allow me the permission from the beginning. And so then I always, when I see things that are not right, or I hear people not calling, or they're not connected and they're not, doing what they said they were going to do, I know I already have that permission from them as their friend, as their coach, as their mentor, or as their, person that they've locked arms with. Many times they'll come to me and say, okay, listen, I know I committed to this, coming out of celebration, this is what I want to do. Okay, so what do we need to do to get there? What is it that I can help you do? Let's get some 3-way calls going, or let's go back to your list. Let's make your goals and write them down and send them to me. And I reaffirm what they've been looking for. That's how we get started. But, every person, it's different. So you have to kind of be a chameleon in this business and adapt to everybody's personality. It's truly been a journey, and you learn a lot about people in this business. And I love people. So for me, it's been an interesting ride for the past 6 years. I love what we do. I love who we get to be within this journey in this business. And I'm growing and evolving every day. So I stay in the learning zone, like Stephen always says. And I'm always committed to becoming better. And like right now, I've hired a health coach. So I have a personal trainer in the gym, because I know I'm not where I need to be physically, right? And I've hired a business coach. So I'm working with a Tony Robbins coach right now. And I go to all of the events like University in Action. So this is what I can say to somebody like Silva, who's on the call today. Are you doing what it takes to get your business to the next level? And she'll be open, honest, and real with me and tell me what she's not doing. And so that's where we can go to fix, what's missing, the missing gaps. So the next thing she needs to do is get to the next event, or, you know, whatever it is, listen to a podcast if she can't afford a coach, right? Does that make sense? Anyone else want to share something? Something open up for you on this call? I had to mute Steven out because he was talking in the background, but he's on the call. Thank you, Steven, for allowing me to host the call today. It helps me to become a better leader, right?
Susie, I'll share. This was interesting. I didn't. I unfortunately was late getting in, so I didn't get the beginning of that video. But what I did get, I assume was the bulk of it, was really actually very self-explanatory. And some of the videos that we watch are a little bit complex, and you have to kind of really decipher exactly what the person is trying to say or how you're going to interpret it. But this seemed to me it was very simple. You know, you have to get into a discomfort zone. You have to go there. It's just not a choice. But I had not really thought of it in the way he put it. There can be no growth if you don't reach that. And then in order to, I know this sounds crazy, but you can't reach a comfort zone until you keep going through the discomfort zone. Or I should say, maybe that's your personality. If you are seeking a higher level, if you're seeking to grow, discomfort is required, and you have to become comfortable with discomfort. If I'm really reading that right, you know, it is something that it was never easy when you first started, but you know, the further along you go, I am comfortable with discomfort, and every day I hope something happens that puts me into a discomfort zone, because tomorrow it's no longer uncomfortable.
That's awesome, Tim. And, you know, he said you can put yourself into the uncomfortable zone. So that's something that where maybe you didn't realize it before, but you can push yourself past that. Because I don't know, there are some people in life that are so very organized. They like to know what the outcome is. They want to know exactly what's going to happen next. And my daughter's like that, you know, she'll play the scenario over and over again until she knows exactly what's going to happen, right? But you can't make anything perfect. And by trying to be perfect, that's, you know, you're stopping yourself from growing and becoming better. So that's, you know, as a parent, I've learned, you know, you can't be perfect. You just have to be yourself and try your best and just be better every single day, you know? And I love that, Tim, I thought this video was so simple enough too. Sometimes I'm like watching the video and trying to figure out what they're trying to say. Yeah, Adriana, you want to speak to that? I love that you're sharing that. Get into the uncomfortable.
I'm at the gym. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So it's something that hold on, let me just hold it so I don't make people. That's something that I a lot is I'm always replaying things in my head or ideas and scenarios in my head on how it might play out, and then it paralyzes me and I end up doing nothing, and it's a cycle. I end up getting nothing done. And the times that I've been brave and I have pushed through it, after it's done, it's just no big deal. Like, why did I waste all that time? Those other times, not pushing forward. And for me personally, what I realized is certain people intimidate me. And it's an idea that I put in my head that people who are working or have a corporate, not even corporate, but more of a business background, I have a harder time approaching, because I feel like, well, what do I know? I've been home for around kids. I minimize myself, and that's something that I'm realizing now that I do, which I have to overcome. So I play these scenarios in my head, and I'm aware of it, and now it's just taking the next step and pushing through that. And I just want to comment on something that Tim said. I don't think we should ever have like a comfort zone. I feel like we're comfortable now where we are, but I feel like we should always have the discomfort. I don't feel like there should be ever a final destination, I guess, or really gonna end. Like you reach that and then you make a new level. I don't know if that makes sense. You know, I was just trying to I don't know, it stuck out to me, what he was saying. So I just wanted to get used to, like right now, I'm really uncomfortable. My back is up against the wall, and it makes me want to throw up sometimes, to be honest. And I've never felt that before. So I know this, what I'm feeling like inside, is necessary for me to go forward.
Well, I'm so proud of you for sharing, because I know how hard it is for you.
I didn't cry.
I know. I feel the pain, like the pain coming from you. And that's the only way it's going to change, Adriana. Honestly, that's how I feel every single day. There's some days that I want to throw up every single day. It's not easy for any one of us. But if you're happy with where you're at, then you have to stay in the comfort zone. But if you're not happy with your results, that's when you have to change and know that it's going to be uncomfortable. Because just think about Laura. Laura lost over 100 pounds. She had to do uncomfortable things over and over and over again, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's like all these things that we can battle in our head. And it's the simplest little tweak that you can make that can make you flourish, right?
Yeah. You know what dawned on me this morning? Because I'm going to forget. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
Is that I see myself almost like, I guess you could use the term mask, and like it's in front of me. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even feel like that's really me. When I think about everything that I've ever had to deal with, I'll be 36 next week. I've been through a lot of stuff. And I'm like, when I tell people, they'll like look at me and I'm like, what? Like, I feel like to me, I minimize it and I can't, because I'm a lot stronger than what I give myself credit for. And I feel like that person in front of me, like that mask, it's like kind of like detaching slowly. And I kind of want to just like pick her up and like throw her. And that's what I'm realizing. It's like now I feel like I see that in someone else instead of myself, like a shedding. It's like a butterfly, you know? So that's something that I had this morning while I was driving.
Awesome.
I'll let someone else share now.
Yeah. Sometimes I say, and this is my French, sometimes you got to rip that off like a Brazilian wax.
Mm-hmm.
Rip that layer off, Adriana.
Yep. I hear you.
Anyone else have something good to share?
Yeah, I want to share. I was just watching that, and I kind of had an aha moment about it, because I have a lot of what do I want to say, uncomfortable situations in my life, of my personal life that I've been living through, and what I have found out is that my comfortable place is in the community of this company and in the business. And so I'm not getting uncomfortable in it because it's a place where I'm going to be comfortable. Does that make sense to you? Because it's really, like it's just hitting me right now. Like this is like my comfortable spot. And so I'm not growing in my business because I'm growing outside of my business, which really seems awkward. But it's just like, it just like hit me like that. And I'm like really tired of being that little fish. So, yeah, that's what I came away with. It's like, this is my comfortable spot.
Woo! I love it. Come on, Debbie. It's
So I'm getting uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so oftentimes I see like we can go to all of the events, we can listen to all the CDs, we can listen to all of the
It's
trainings,
my,
but if we're not putting it into action, we're just we just love hanging around the same people.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I have one more share
Thanks for that.
what Debbie said brought
Wait,
something to my
see what happens when you break the seal with Adriana?
Sorry. One more thing, and then I'll stop. I think part of how we feel, and it doesn't matter the scenario, we are comfortable in feeling, it's almost like we're addicted to that feeling of being uncomfortable inside, and we're scared to break out of that, if that makes sense. Like almost like we're so programmed and used to feeling that uneasiness in ourselves that what would it be like if something was a little bit easier for us? Like, what if we didn't complicate something and we just went with it and let things happen? And I know for me, I'm very used to the turmoil that's in my head. I'm used to that, and it's a sucky place to be. But I conditioned myself that that's okay, and I think that's part of the uncomfortableness or the comfort zone. It's like the comfort of being not messed up. I don't know what the right word is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Love that. That was great.
Susie, hi, it's Annette.
Hey, Annette. Morning.
Good morning. Debbie, that was so awesome what you said. Everybody, that all of you were saying, and Adrienne, I will probably cry. So I have such regard and such respect for every single one of you, and you are helping me to grow in small steps, baby steps, if you will. But especially in the last month or two, I really have felt it within myself to stay calmer, not to get overwhelmed with what's happening, because sometimes when that growth happens or positive things are happening, you almost get scared. Like you don't know if you can handle it, if it's going to be bigger than you. And I know I have all of you, but I do not reach out. I'm very guilty of that, and I apologize. Debbie, you're a perfect example. I said I wanted to call you the other day. I did not. And then I was actually working on a huge thing for yesterday at my church. So I was involved and I was hosting something. But that's not an excuse. And so I then look and feel so irresponsible, so inadequate, so disrespectful of your time, of reaching out for a moment. Or Susie, I'm afraid to text you to say, can we talk? I know your schedule's so busy, and I'm just this little pebble, and that's all fine. I'm fine. I'm not going to crash, but I, as those things go on, then I feel like I lose everyone else's respect. And guess what? Rightly so, because you just can't not be where you say you're going to be. That's the bottom line. So I have been listening to the calls, to Stephen, to other speakers, whatever, everyone who makes a contribution. I thank you all. And I have now like a couple of men in particular from my church, but who are former network marketing, have looked at our products in the past. This week now, I'm going to look when we hang up here to the call for men, the men's call, and send it to both of them. At least those two, and there's one or two more in addition. And I just, for me, it's like, well, then who do I call after they listen to the call? Who should I call? Stephen? Who should I call to maybe do that three-way with them? That's my fear. That's my not representing to them that I have any validity. So I don't know if I've sort of turned it around, because it is positive how I feel, how grateful I am for every single one of you and every contribution that you make.
Let me just set something straight really quickly, though. None of us are small. None of us are little pebbles. Everyone is equal. It's how you choose to show up in this, right?
Mhm.
And if you feel you need help from someone and everybody's saying they're available, well, then, that's some misconception that you have in your own head. And that's something that has to shift, right?
Right.
I feel what I hear from Debbie, what I hear from Adriana, what I hear from you is that you guys have the fear of success. Maybe that's something that scares you, to be successful. And that's where personal development comes in.
Mhm.
And, if you can't hire a coach or you can't do coaching, and you have to, work on that part of it until you get strong enough in yourself. Right?
Right. And those are the little steps that I do feel happening. It's slower than someone who, as you say, can afford that coach. But
Yeah,
and the Susan and Lisa coaching is phenomenal as well. So I'm doing the best I can in terms of participating to the level that I can.
Yeah, and exactly what Judy and Tim are saying. Tim is saying healthy mind and body. Judy's saying you never feel, you have to worry about asking the team. That's what we're here for. We're here to lift each other up. And that's why this is such a vibrant and beautiful community, right?
Thank you, yes.
Anyone else want to share? Because we're coming up on the quarter of the hour. Tim?
Yeah, I'll just put this last thing in. I am, how do I say this right? Without a doubt, I am extraordinarily uncomfortable with all the new verbiage I have to learn. So I know this is going to sound crazy, but I shower every day with Eric Worre. Every day, he's in the shower with me. And I don't think he does. And I'm on my third time listening to GoPro. And I am starting to, and he says it over and over and over again, use my words until they become your words. And because I don't have my own words in so many instances, I just don't have my own words. So I'm starting to use his words, and I'm extraordinarily uncomfortable. But fortunately, the people who I'm talking to don't know that I'm uncomfortable. But I'm slowly converting it to my verbiage and my words, but it's his message. And of course, in my car, he doesn't know it either, but Michael Klaus is sitting in the back seat. I don't get in my car without Michael Klaus, and I'm listening to things he says. And his are very different than Eric Worre's, but the discomfort it puts me in, I will admit that there are days when I get in my car, I'm like, oh, just put on the radio. I just want to hear music. And then I say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You told yourself you bought those CDs and you're going to listen to this, and it's going to just keep seeping in and seeping in and seeping in. I was on a 3-hour drive earlier this month, 3 hours there, 3 hours back, and I really could not believe that at no point was I tempted to put on the radio, and at no point was I like, just shut up, Michael Klaus. Like, it didn't happen. And no matter how, he really was, my brain was going to explode. I was very, very uncomfortable with what he was teaching me, but I just was excited to be uncomfortable. Does that make sense? Like, I knew that my growth rate was at its highest level, being so awkward and uncomfortable listening. So these two guys are constantly talking to me, and it's only been a month that this is, well, actually it's a little bit more, but I committed to it a month ago. And it hasn't happened. I just keep going. And literally, this is the third round. I'm listening to Eric Worre, and I laugh because I heard this already, Eric. I heard it. But that's where my growth rate is at its peak right now, listening to these guys over and over and over again.
Tim, you're awesome. And you just need to be authentic, and you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. That's what I always say, right? Anybody else before we close it out? I don't know, Laura, were you saying something? We can't hear you.
I'm in awe of all of you today.
There you go.
You know, fear is a crazy thing. I used to hide from fear and numb it any way I could. And nowadays I find myself getting excited about it because I know we're growing. And getting to the events is huge. It fuels me. As you all can tell, I go anywhere I can for an event. But getting out of your own way sometimes is harder than admitting. And, you know, Myron and I have done something huge with our bodies and our goals and transformations, and we've hit so many things. The business is in the forefront right now, and it's scary. I'm not gonna lie, it is. It's work to us meant stress in our last jobs that we did. We don't want stress anymore. So there's a resistance, and it's finding a balance and finding our way. And that's the beauty of this, is we get to find what makes us feel good so that we keep pushing. And I agree with you, Susie, getting help is the biggest thing. When we decided to step in a gym, we got a trainer because we had no idea what to do there. And we've done the same with this, you know, we've gotten help, and you still get the resistance even though you're getting the help. So I think that is a push to say that it's working. Because if I'm going to resist something, that means I'm scared and I'm putting up those walls. And it's incredible to have all of you every day. There's somebody that pushes me a little further over that or through it. And it's kind of fun living in the uncomfortable zone, you know. And I think what Isagenix, the tools they've given us, there's no way not to learn this. So here's to pushing through our uncomfort zones today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for getting on the call. I hope this call was of value to you guys, and I appreciate for you guys letting me serve today. Thank you to Stephen, and love you guys. I hope you have an amazing week.
Thanks, Susie.
Have a
Thanks,
good day,
Susie.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Susie.